She left her own son on my driveway like a bag of wet garbage. My daughter laughed as she sped away, telling me to fix him if I was so smart. She thought she was dumping a broken child on a washed-up old carpenter. She didn't realize she was handing me the blueprints to an empire she would never touch. 8 years later, she came back to rob us, thinking I was just a fragile old nan she could crush with a lawsuit. She was about to find out that I've spent 40 years framing houses, and I know exactly how to make a rotten structure collapse on top of the rats living inside it. If you're listening to this, subscribe to the channel and let me know where you're watching from. It helps to know I'm not the only one who believes loyalty is worth more than gold. Let me back up to the night the storm began. It was heavy, relentless, a vertical ocean trying to drown the world. I was in my garage, a sanctuary of sawdust and the pungent, grounding scent of old motor oil. The air here was usually still, a vacuum where I could escape the silence of the main house, but tonight the storm was screaming. It rattled the corrugated metal roof like a handful of gravel thrown against tin. I was sanding down the leg of a Queen Anne chair I'd been fixing for Mrs. Higgins down the street. The sandpaper rasped, sheck, 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 a rhythmic comfort against the chaos outside. It was late, past midnight. Sleep hadn't come easily to me since Martha passed 3 years ago. The bed was too big now. The sheets were always too cold, no matter how many blankets I piled on. My hands, calloused and scarred from 40 years of framing houses and laying floors, needed to be busy. If my hands stopped, my mind started. And my mind was a place I didn't like to visit lately. It was full of echoes. Then, the light cut through the gloom. Twin beams of halogen headlights swept across the wet driveway. They sliced through the darkness, blindingly bright, before settling on the garage door. They illuminated the tools hanging on my pegboard. Hammers, chisels, saws, casting long, distorted shadows that stretched out like accusing fingers. I stopped sanding. My heart gave a painful thud, a skipped beat of anticipation and dread. No one came here this late, not unless something was broken beyond repair. I wiped my hands on a rag, the grit of the sandpaper lingering on my fingertips. I walked to the side door, my boots heavy on the concrete. I didn't open it immediately. I watched through the grime-streaked glass. A car door slammed. The sound was muffled by the wind, but it felt heavy. Final. Then another slam. I squinted into the rain. I saw my daughter, Rachel. She was standing in the downpour. The harsh security light buzzed above the garage door, flickering and turning her skin a sickly yellow. She wasn't wearing a coat, just a thin, leopard print sweater that clung to her frame, soaked through in seconds. She looked frantic, vibrating with a chaotic energy that I could feel one from behind the glass. Her mascara was running in dark rivets down her pale cheeks, like cracks in a porcelain mask. I hadn't seen her in 3 years, but she still looked like trouble. Next to her, dragging a heavy-duty black trash bag out of the trunk, was a boy, my grandson, Leo. I stared at him. He was 15 now, but in the harsh light, he looked smaller. He was hunched over against the wind, as if trying to fold himself into non-existence. His hair was matted to his forehead. He was staring at the wet asphalt of the driveway, as if it would open up and swallow him whole. He didn't look like a teenager. He looked like wreckage, flotsam washed up on a rocky shore after a violent wreck. I opened the door. The spray of rain hit my face instantly, cold and shocking. "Rachel?" I called out, stepping onto the porch. "What's going on?" She didn't look at me. She ran up the steps, bypassing me completely to huddle under the overhang, her arms wrapped around herself. As she passed, the smell hit me. Not the rain, but the scent of stale cigarette smoke and cheap, cloying perfume. It was a scent that dragged up memories of teenage rebellion, of slammed doors and screaming matches I thought we had buried years ago. "I can't do it, Dad," she gasped, her voice shrill, cutting through the thunder. She was shaking. Her eyes darted around the yard like a trapped animal looking for a gap in the fence. "I just can't. He's too much." "Who is too much?" I asked, my voice dropping into the low, steady baritone I used on construction sites. "Leo? He's weird, Dad," she shouted, spinning around to face me. She looked manic, her pupils dilated. "He doesn't talk. He just sits there. He stares at walls. And Mark says he's bad energy. He says the kid is a void." "Mark," I said the name like a curse word. "And what does Mark know about raising a child?" "We're moving to the city," she rushed on, ignoring the question. We have a chance, Dad. A real chance to make it big. Mark has a connection in real estate, she said, her eyes wide and desperate. A condo in the district. It's high end, but no kids allowed in the loft. It's strictly adults only. No kids? I looked past her. The boy was standing by the trunk of the idling car. He hadn't moved. The rain was hammering him, turning his gray hoodie almost black. He wasn't shivering. He was just taking it. He's your son, Rachel, I said. He's not a dog you drop off at the pound because your new landlord has a policy. He's 15. He's practically a man. She dug her keys out of her pocket, her hands shaking so hard they jingled like chimes. You take him. You always judged me for how I raised him anyway. You always looked at me like I was failing, like I was a crack in your perfect foundation. She stepped back toward the rain. Well, here, you do it. Show me how it's done. She was already moving back to the car. She wasn't running to escape the rain. She was running to escape the guilt. She was running from herself. If you leave him here like this, I said, my voice dropping to a low growl that vibrated in my chest. Don't you dare come back when you feel like playing mommy again. She stopped with her hand on the door handle. She looked back at me. For a second, I saw the little girl I used to push on the swings. The little girl who used to bring me dandelions. Then she laughed. A sharp, brittle sound that cracked in the cold air. Don't worry, old man. I won't. I'm free. She jumped into the car. The engine roared. A sound of escape, aggressive and desperate. The tires spun in the mud, spraying Leo's legs with grime. He didn't flinch. He didn't look up. He just watched the red taillights fade into the storm, until there was nothing left but the darkness and the rain. I stood there for a moment, the silence of the aftermath heavier than the storm. My knees ached, a reminder of 65 years of gravity and hard labor. I felt a weight settle on my shoulders that had nothing to do with the rain. I walked down the steps, the water soaking my boots. I put a hand on Leo's shoulder. Under the wet hoodie, he was trembling, vibrating like a tuning fork struck by a hammer. Come on, Leo, I said gently. Let's get you inside. He didn't look at me. He didn't speak. He just nodded, gripped his trash bag tighter until his knuckles turned white, and walked into the house. That first night was the hardest silence I have ever endured. The house felt cavernous. I made him a grilled cheese sandwich, the butter sizzling in the pan, the only sound in the kitchen. He ate it in 3 bites, staring at the grain of the oak table, his eyes hollow, focused on nothing. I set up the guest room, my old office. I cleared away the stacks of blueprints and tax forms. I gave him clean towels that smelled of lavender, Martha's favorite detergent. Good night, son, I said at the door, my hand lingering on the brass knob. He sat on the edge of the bed, his back to me. She's not coming back, is she? His voice was deeper than I expected. A man's timbre, but it cracked on the last word, betraying the terrified child inside. No, I said. I refused to lie to him. False hope is a rope. It eats the structure from the inside out. She isn't. He nodded again. A small, jerky motion. He didn't cry. He just laid down, fully clothed, shoes and all, and turned off the lamp. I closed the door, but the darkness seemed to seep out from under it. I sat in my armchair in the living room until the sun came up. I listened to the rain tap against the window pane, wondering how a man with a bad back, a shrinking pension, and a heart full of ghosts was going to fix a broken boy. The first 6 months were a war of attrition. Leo wasn't rebellious in the loud, cinematic way of teenagers. He didn't sneak out or blast music. He was rebellious in his absence. He was a vacuum in the center of the house. He went to school, came home, and locked himself in his room. He didn't speak unless spoken to, and even then, his answers were monosyllabic. I was called to the school twice, not for fighting, but for refusal to engage. He just draws, Mr. Miller. The principal, a weary woman named Mrs. Gable, told me. She slid a notebook across her desk. Intricate patterns. Geometrical shapes, but he won't answer questions. He won't participate in group work. I picked up the notebook. They weren't doodles, they were schematics. Asymmetric projections of bridges, fractals, complex polyhedrons. They were precise, shaded with obsessive detail. I looked at Mrs. Gable. He's not refusing to engage. He's building something inside his head. I recognized that look. It was the look of a man trying to make sense of chaos. I was a carpenter. I knew that you couldn't build a house from the roof down. You had to start with the foundation. And our foundation was cracked. I decided to bring him into my world. The world of tangible things. I need help in the shop, I told him one Saturday morning. It wasn't a request. I put a mug of coffee in front of him. Leo looked up from his cereal, his eyes dull. I don't know how to build stuff. You have hands, I said. That's a start. And you eat my food, so you work my wood. He dragged himself to the garage. At first, he just swept the sawdust, moving like he was underwater, slow and resistant. Then he held the wood while I cut. I taught him the smell of cedar, the strength of oak, the temper of pine. One afternoon, about 6 months in, we were working on a custom cabinet for the library. I was struggling with the calculations for the corner joinery. My eyes weren't what they used to be, the numbers blurring on the page, and the angles were tricky. A non-standard reset. Leo was watching me from the corner, leaning against the drill press, arms crossed. He walked over and looked at my sketch pad. He picked up a pencil, twirling it deftly in his fingers. In 10 seconds, he sketched a complex geometric diagram over my clumsy drawing. If you cut it at 45 degrees, the stress will split the wood grain eventually, he said quietly. His voice was rusty from disuse. You need a compound miter. 38 degrees here, 52 there. It distributes the load along the fiber. I looked at him, stunned. The math was instantaneous. How do you know that? It's just math, he shrugged, looking embarrassed, retreating back into his shell like a turtle poked with a stick. It's logical. Things want to fit together. You just have to let them. People are messy. Numbers aren't. That was the spark. Leo didn't have a carpenter's hands. They were too slender, too artistic. But he had an architect's mind. He saw the invisible structures that held the world together. He understood load, tension, and balance instinctively. I changed my strategy. I saved every penny I could. I stopped buying the good coffee. I canceled the cable TV. I took extra shifts fixing rotting porches in the muggy summer heat. I bought him a computer, a decent tower, not top of the line but enough to run CAD software and compilers. He disappeared into it. But this time, it wasn't a retreat. It was an expedition. He started coding. He wasn't playing games. He was deconstructing them. Then he moved on to systems. He created a program to organize my inventory and invoices. It was simple, elegant, and bug-free. Years passed, like the turning of seasons. We fell into a rhythm, a bachelor ecosystem. We argued about whose turn it was to do dishes. We watched football on Sundays, groaning at bad calls. We never spoke of Rachel. She was a closed door, a room in the house we had bricked over. But even bricked-over rooms have ghosts. When Leo was 18, he got into a prestigious tech institute. The acceptance letter came in a thick, creamy envelope. The tuition was astronomical. A number with too many zeros. I can't go, Leo said, tossing the acceptance letter in the trash can in the kitchen. I'll get a job at the lumber mill. They're hiring forklift drivers. I can help with the bills. You're getting older, Grandpa. Pick that up, I ordered, pointing at the trash. Grandpa, we don't have the money. I've seen the bank statements. I have the house, I said. No, he shook his head violently, his face flushing red. You worked your whole life for this house. It's all you have. It's Mom's legacy, and Grandma's. I won't let you mortgage it for me. Trebush, a house is just wood and brick, Leo, I told him, walking over and gripping his shoulders. They were broad now, strong. He was taller than me. You are the legacy. You are the build. I am betting on you. Don't make me lose that bet. I went to the bank the next day. I met with Elias Thorne, the branch manager. He was an old friend, a man who wore suits that were too tight and always smelled of peppermint. Frank, Elias said, looking at my application over his glasses, you're mortgaging everything? At your age, if you miss 3 payments, the bank takes the deed. I can't stop them. I know the risks, Elias, I said. Just give me the pen. He handed it to me. His hand shook more than mine did. I took night shifts as a security guard at the lumber yard to pay the interest. It was brutal work, walking the perimeter in the freezing cold, my joints burning, fighting sleep. The solitude was heavy, broken only by the hum of the distant highway. But every time I came home at dawn and saw Leo Zinning, his face illuminated by the blue glow of his screens, I knew it was worth it. He graduated top of his class. He didn't go to Silicon Valley. He came back to the garage. He started a company in our basement. He called it Ironwood Systems, a nod to the shop. He worked 20-hour days. He built a cybersecurity platform that used AI to predict breaches before they happened, calculating the stress points in a network just like he calculated the stress in a cabinet joint. And then when he was 23, the breakthrough happened. A major defense contractor wanted the software. The negotiations took weeks. Suits visited our messy kitchen. I didn't understand the legal jargon, but I understood the look in Leo's eyes. He was calm. He was playing chess while they were playing checkers. He sold Ironwood for $14 million. The day the money hit his account, he walked into the shop. I was sanding a rocking chair, the dust motes dancing in a sunbeam. "Grandpa," he said. "Yeah, kid? Pack your bag." "Why? Are we going on a trip?" "No," he smiled, tears welling in his eyes. The first tears I had seen since that first night. "We're going to the bank. I'm paying off the mortgage. And then I'm buying you that '67 Mustang Fastback you've been talking about since I was 12. We stood there in the sawdust, hugging. The boy who had been dropped off like garbage was now a king. And I was just the proudest man on earth. But in every tragedy, the villain enters right when the hero thinks he's safe. It was a Tuesday. It's always a Tuesday when the bad news hits. The phone rang. I picked it up, expecting a telemarketer. "Hello? Daddy?" My blood turned to ice. It had been 8 years. Not a postcard, not a text, not a whisper. "Rachel," I said. My voice was flat, devoid of warmth. It was the sound of a door slamming shut. "Oh, Daddy, I've missed you so much." "I saw the news. About Leo, my baby boy. Is it true? Is he really—" She smelled the money. I could hear the greed dripping from her voice. "He's not a baby, Rachel. He's a man. And yes, he sold the company." "I knew it," she squealed. "I knew he was special. Listen, Mark and we're in town. We came as soon as we heard. We want to see him. We want to celebrate. We're a family. He doesn't want to see you," I said, gripping the phone so hard the plastic creaked. "You don't decide that," she snapped, the mask slipping instantly. The venom was still there. "I'm his mother. I have rights. We're coming over. If you set foot on this property, I will call the sheriff," I said. "You wouldn't dare. We're family. Blood is thicker than water, Frank." I hung up. My hands were shaking. I wasn't scared of her. I was scared for Leo. He was strong, reinforced steel now, but the wound of a mother's rejection never truly heals. It just scabs over. If you pick at it, you bleed. I told Leo that night. We were sitting on the porch, watching the lightning flash in the distance. "She called," I said. Leo stopped rocking in his chair. He stared out at the yard, at the spot where she had peeled out 8 years ago. "I know," she emailed me. 12 times today. To my business address. "What do you want to do?" He was silent for a long time. The wind rustled the oak trees. "I want to see her. Just once. To look her in the eye and tell her it's over. To close the door myself." They came to dinner 2 days later. Rachel and Mark. Mark was older now, heavier, his face puffy from years of hard living and cheap booze. He wore a suit that looked expensive but flashy. Too shiny, too tight. Rachel looked worn, her eyes hard despite the desperate smile plastered on her face like heavy makeup. The tension was thick enough to choke a man. "This house," Mark said, sneering as he looked around our modest living room. "It's quaint. With Leo's money, you could buy a palace. Why stay here in this dump?" "Because this is home," Leo said. His voice was calm, icy. He didn't blink. Rachel reached for Leo's hand across the table. I pulled it away as if she were made of fire. "Leo, honey," she said, her voice trembling with fake emotion. A performance she had clearly rehearsed. "I know you're hurt. I know we made mistakes. But we were young. We were struggling. We did what we had to do to survive. You left me in a trash bag, Leo said. In the rain. We left you with your grandfather because he could give you stability. Mark interjected, his mouth full of roast beef. And look, it worked. You're rich. We made the right call. We sacrificed being with you so you could have this. Is that why you're here? Leo asked. Because I'm rich? We're here because we love you, Rachel said, tears welling up on command. But yes, things are hard for us. Mark's business had a setback. Real estate is brutal. We have debts. Bad debts. If you could just help us, maybe 5 million, that's nothing to you now. It would save our lives. It would make us a family again. 5 million. She asked for it like it was a glass of water. No, Leo said. The room went deadly silent. The grandfather clock in the hall ticked loudly. Excuse me? Mark said, leaning forward. The aggression radiated off him like heat from a furnace. I said no. You don't get a reward for abandoning me. You don't get a commission on a project you walked away from. Mark stood up, knocking his chair over. It clattered against the floor. You ungrateful little punk. She gave birth to you. You owe her. We own you. I stood up too. I grabbed the carving knife from the table. I didn't raise it, but I held it firm, the blade catching the light. Sit down, Mark, or get out. Mark looked at me, then at the knife. He sneered, his eyes darting between us. Come on, Rachel. We're not begging this old fool. They walked to the door. Before they left, Mark turned to me, his face twisted in a rictus of hate. You think you won, Frank? You think you can keep the golden goose? We'll see about that. There are laws, old man. Laws about keeping a mother from her child. We're going to bleed you dry. Get out, I roared, the sound tearing from my throat. They left, but the silence they left behind wasn't peaceful. It was the heavy, suffocating silence before a bomb goes off. The lawsuit arrived 4 days later. Rachel Daniels versus Frank Miller. The accusations were a work of fiction so twisted it made my stomach turn. Parental alienation. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. Coercion. Elder undue influence. She claimed I had brainwashed Leo. She claimed I had prevented her from visiting, that I had intercepted her letters, that I had told Leo she was dead, and the kicker, she was petitioning for a conservatorship over Leo. She claimed his refusal to help his destitute mother was proof of his mental incompetence, citing his antisocial adolescence as evidence of a disorder. We went to see Helen Ross, the best lawyer in the county. She was a shark in a silk blouse, with eyes that could cut glass. It's a shakedown, Frank, Helen said grimly, reading the file. They know they can't win on the merits, but they can tie up his assets for years. They can drag your name through the mud. They want a settlement. I won't do it, Leo said from the corner. I won't give them a dime. Then buckle up, Helen warned, because it's going to get dirty. It started with the press. A reporter from a trashy tabloid ambushed me at the grocery store. Mr. Miller, is it true you locked your grandson in a basement for 3 years? Mark had fed them lies. I pushed the camera away, instinct taking over. The next day, the headline read, Violent Grandfather Attacks Press. People in town started looking at me differently. The cashier didn't smile. The mailman wouldn't meet my eye. Then came the betrayal. I saw my neighbor, Bob Jenkins, at the fence. We'd been friends for 20 years. We fished together. Morning, Bob, I said. He turned his back on me. I don't want to get involved, Frank, but Mark told me what you did. Beating that boy. Bob, that's a lie. Is it? He walked into his house. The isolation was cold, colder than the rain. Then came the brick. I woke up at 3:00 a.m. to the sound of shattering glass. A brick had been thrown through the bay window of the living room. It landed on the rug amidst a shower of shards. Wrapped around it was a note. Family comes first. Pay up. The wind howled through the broken window, chilling the house. Leo wanted to call the police. We did. Detective Cole arrived. He was young, chewing gum, looking bored. No witnesses, Cole shrugged. Could be kids. It was Mark, I said. Prove it, Cole said. He didn't care. We were on our own. Then came the financial freeze. Leo's bank accounts were temporarily frozen by a judge pending a preliminary hearing on his competency. Mark's lawyer had filed an emergency motion. We couldn't pay the bills. I had to dip into my meager savings just to buy groceries. It was humiliating. I saw Leo counting cash in his wallet, looking terrified. Not of poverty, but of the loss of control. The feeling of the walls closing in, and finally the physical threat. I was driving the Mustang, Leo's gift, when a black SUV swerved into my lane on a rain-slicked curve. I slammed on the brakes and spun into a ditch. Metal crunched, the airbag deployed, hitting me like a fist. My chest screamed in pain. I looked up. The SUV paused. The driver, a man with a scar on his cheek, nodded at me, then sped off. It was a warning, a kinetic message. I limped home, bruised, battered. I found Leo in the kitchen. He was staring at his laptop, his face pale. "Maybe we should pay them, Grandpa," he whispered. "It's destroying you. They're going to kill you." "No," I said, slamming my hand on the table. "That's what they want. We are builders, Leo. We don't break. We reinforce. But how do we fight lies?" He asked, tears in his eyes. "It's her word against ours. She's a great actress. The judge might believe her. We need proof," I said. "Real proof." Leo looked at me. His eyes changed. The fear vanished. The architect returned. That cold, calculating look he had when he solved the joinery problem years ago. "I have an idea," Leo said. "But we have to bait the trap. We have to let them think the walls are crumbling." We hired a private investigator, a former Fed named Jack Miller, no relation. He dug into Mark and Rachel. He found what we suspected: gambling debts. Massive ones. They owed sharks in Vegas over 400. They weren't just greedy. They were desperate. If they didn't pay soon, they were dead. I called Rachel. I channeled every ounce of exhaustion I felt. "I can't do this anymore," I rasped into the phone, letting my voice waver. He's cracking. "We have no food. Please, Rachel, let's end this." "I knew you'd break," she purred. The triumph in her voice was sickening. "Come to the house. Tomorrow night, we'll sign a settlement. Just leave us alone after." "$5 million, she said. "Fine, just come." They arrived like conquering heroes. Mark was grinning, strutting up the walk. Rachel was crying fake tears of relief. They brought a notary and their lawyer. We sat in the living room. The window was boarded up with woolev, a visual symbol of our defeat. The settlement papers were on the table. "Same here," Mark said, tapping the paper with a thick finger. "Admitting that you kept Leo from us, and authorizing the transfer." "I have one question," Leo said. He was sitting in the corner, looking small and defeated. "Did you ever send me letters? Did you ever try to call?" Rachel sighed, a dramatic, tragic sound. "Oh, Leo, every week, for 8 years, I wrote you poems. I sent birthday cards. Grandpa, he burned them all. He erased me from your life." "And the phone calls?" Leo asked. "I called every Christmas," she sobbed. "He told me you hated me." "Okay," Leo said. "I just wanted to hear you say it." He reached for the pen. "Don't sign it," I shouted, standing up. This was part of the plan, but the anger was real. Mark shoved me back into my chair. He was strong. "Shut up, old man. Let the boy sign." "You're hurting him," Leo said. "I'll hurt him a lot more if you don't sign," Mark snarled, leaning into Leo's face. "We have friends, Leo, friends who can burn this wooden shack down with you inside it. We'll make it look like an accident." Leo didn't flinch. He just stared at them, memorizing the moment. Then he closed the folder. "Get out," Leo said. "What?" Mark laughed. "You're not signing." "No," Leo said. "I'm not." Mark lunged at him. I grabbed my hickory cane and swung it with all the strength left in my body. Crack. It caught Mark across the shins. He howled and fell back.
"I said get out." I roared. They retreated, screaming threats. "We'll see you in court on Monday. We'll take everything. You'll rot in jail, Frank." As the door slammed, Leo turned to his computer. "Did we get it?" "Clear as day," I said. But threats weren't enough.
We needed to destroy the lie about the letters. "Grandpa," Leo said, holding up a small, dusty hard drive. "Remember the webcam you bought me when I was 16?
"Yeah?"
I never turned it off." The courtroom was packed. Rachel took the stand. She was brilliant. She wept. She shook. "I just want my son back," she whispered. Judge Holloway looked at me with disdain. I felt the weight of the room crushing me. Then it was our turn. "Your Honor," Helen said, "we have no witnesses, only digital evidence." Leo connected his laptop. "My mother claims she wrote letters," Leo said. "I built a mail server at 16. It logs everything." He clicked a button. "Search Rachel Daniels." Result, she never sent an email, Leo said. "Not one." Rachel's lawyer objected. "He deleted them. Logs don't lie," Leo said. "But let's look at the noise." Exhibit B, the social media archive. "I scraped her public data," Leo said. A photo appeared, Rachel and Mark on a beach. Caption, "Living our best life. No kids, no worries. Freedom." The courtroom murmured. Another photo, a sports car. Caption, "My new baby," the only one that doesn't talk back. Rachel sank in her seat. Exhibit C, the video diary. "I was lonely," Leo said, "so I talked to my computer." The video played. A 15-year-old Leo. "Mom didn't call. Grandpa is sad. I miss her." Cut to a year later. "I found her number. I called. She hung up." The silence in the room was absolute. "And finally," Leo said, 2 nights ago, the video from our living room played. "Mark, we can burn this shack down." "Rachel, I knew you'd break, old man." Judge Holloway slammed her gavel. "In 30 years, she said, her voice trembling, "I have never seen such greed." She pointed a finger at Rachel. "Mrs. Daniels, your claims are dismissed with prejudice." She turned to the bailiff. "Officer, take Mr. Vance and Mrs. Daniels into custody." "Extortion, death threats, fraud." "No," Rachel screamed. "It's a fake." Mark tried to run. The bailiff tackled him. I watched them get dragged away. Rachel looked at me. "Daddy, help me." I stood up. "I can't help you, Rachel," I said softly. "You built this house. Now you have to live in it." We drove home in the new Mustang. The top was down. The air smelled of rain and pine. We pulled into the driveway. The house looked different to me now. It wasn't just a shelter, it was a fortress. It was scarred, the window was still boarded up, but the foundation was solid. We sat on the porch steps, watching the fireflies come out. "You know," Leo said, "I could buy a penthouse in New York." "I know," I said. "You have the world at your feet." "But I was thinking," he continued, looking at the garage. "The workshop is getting a little small. If we knocked out the back wall, maybe add a CNC machine, make custom furniture again." I looked at him. My grandson. The architect of his own life. "I'm getting old, Leo," I said. "I can't lift the heavy beams anymore." "That's okay," he smiled, putting his arm around my shoulder. "I'll do the lifting. You just tell me where to cut. You're the foreman." I smiled back, feeling a peace deeper than any I had ever known. "Measure twice," I whispered. "Cut once," he finished. And there, in the quiet of the evening, with the storm finally past, we began to plan our next build. If you're glad Frank and Leo stood their ground, hit the like button, and tell me in the comments, did Rachel deserve forgiveness, or exactly what she got?